Hey, singers, time for another singer spotlight. And I got to admit, this is no lie, this is my favorite one so far because it's with a friend of mine, Mr. Joe Vitale. And I really shouldn't have to give an introduction. Most of you know him. He's been in movies like The Secret. You probably read The Attractor Factor, Zero Limits. One of my favorite books is The Secret Prayer, which I just read. And I was just telling Joe this story about how I just did a TV show for Up Rocks. And I was kind of down thinking, man, I'm kind of tired. I don't think I can shatter this glass. But reading that book, he had quoted and said, "You got to tell yourself you are good enough." And I kept repeating that in my mind, and the show was brilliant. It was beautiful. And I also would not be lying if I told you that if you've heard my music, Joe's partially responsible. Joe had sent me a couple albums a couple years ago, and it just really inspired me. He writes so many books. He's a mentor of mine, and I try to reach that goal. So I thought I better start writing music because Joe's blowing me out of the water. So Joe, thank you for being on board. I'm so happy to have you here.
I didn't know all of this. I didn't know about you being triggered to do the music. I didn't know about the response to The Secret Prayer. So thank you. You deeply touched me, and it's wonderful to hear. And congratulations.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. It's very from the heart. I want to know, we'll kind of get into how you started writing about 4 years ago, but I know you had somewhat of a musical background. So before we get into this, can you tell me about your musical background? When did you start? What did you play? Was you a singer, guitar player?
Wow, I had next to no musical background. I wanted to play the guitar when I was like 10 years old. And so my father, listening to me so well, went out and bought me an accordion. And he wanted me to take accordion lessons. I wanted to play the guitar, not the accordion. So I reluctantly took accordion lessons until it was obvious that I was bored and I wasn't going anywhere. And I really didn't have any musical training. I didn't sing in the shower. I didn't write music. It was a secret desire of mine that I carried throughout my life, that I wanted to learn how to play guitar. I wanted to learn how to write some music, but I didn't really pursue it. I would meet a few musicians or a few singer-songwriters, and I would ask questions about what they're doing. And occasionally I would buy a guitar only because I was rewarding myself for successes in my career. But I knew like 3 chords, and I didn't really know what to do on it. So I didn't really have any. The only thing I can say is maybe 20 years ago I picked up a harmonica, only because it was so convenient to leave it in my car, to leave it in my pocket, and I would toot on that. But I didn't have any lessons. I didn't do anything with it. So I don't think I had a musical background outside of what you hear on the radio and stuff like that when you're growing up.
So was it just 4 years ago you said, you know what, I want to be a musician?
Yes. At the end of 2010, I'm looking at my life, and I think I was around 57 years old then. I've already forgotten. And I said, what is there for me to do? What's left undone? I wanted to be an author. I am clearly an author. I have written a lot of books, and I got to be in a bunch of movies like The Secret, which led to about 15 other movies. And I've been around the world. I've done so many things. And what came to mind is the music. I've had that secret desire to record. And I thought about it, and I said, I want to write my own music. I want to sing my own songs. I want to record my own stuff, and I want to do it for me. I made that as my intention. It was on my bucket list, and I just declared somehow, some way, at whatever degree of success, I'm going to do it. Well, that was 2010.
Here I go. I got my iTunes fired up, and I just want to tell me if these mean anything to you. Let me go down the list. It dropped on me. Where are we at? I know there's a guy in here begins with J. Here we go. Okay, let's start back. I see an album called Strut, The Healing Song, Sun Will Rise, Reflection, One More Day. There's probably more. I get emails from you all the time, but you're doing songs that tie into what you do with positive empowerment. That's 5 records. There's tons of music I've listened to from you. And I'm just blown away. I mean, a lot of my singers come to me like, I want to do an album, but it's going to be a conceptual album. It's going to take 16 years to finish. And here I've got 52 songs just in my iTunes from you since 2012.
Well, it's 2015, and I have 15 albums out now.
Wow.
I have 15 albums completed. The 5 singer-songwriter ones that you're talking about there. I have some separate single tracks that are out there on the internet at some places.
I've actually got some.
Yeah, 15 albums in just under 5 years. I think the first one came out in 2011.
That is that just blows my mind. That blows my mind. And I got in as I'm listening to the singer-songwriter stuff, I kind of hear like this Jimmy Buffett influence, but not just that I hear like a bluesy thing, but everything that I listen to is very uplifting. You whistle on some of these songs. It's really cool. You slip some sax in there. Is that safe to say? Is that what you're going for? Is that your type of style, or what is it?
You know what? I am finding my way even now. All I'm doing is expressing what makes me joyful. And because I come from a self-help background, my books are in the self-help category, I thought I want my music to be self-help oriented. I want it to boost people. I want them to be happy. I've always semi-jokingly said that part of the reason people have lack and limitation programming in their head is because of the music they've listened to. Whenever somebody has said in their life, oh, I can't always get what I want, thank the Rolling Stones. They've been singing that into our brain since the 1960s. And I said, where's Equal Time? Where's the band? Where's the music that is coming out there with the positive messages? And so I said, if I'm doing this, let me come out and try to create music that has the opposite effect. It's catchy. You want to sing to it. You want to whistle to it. But the lyrics are programming you for success.
Yes.
So I'm doing the very same thing in music that I've done with my books. That's what that's all about.
I think it's a unique concept. I think you have found a musical style. Like you said, you're always developing. But I'm kind of curious. You didn't really play. You didn't really sing. Still, and I know it's your background, what it is, but how in the world are you writing these many songs and so you travel everywhere? So I'm not even sure how you're getting time to get in the studio and record this many songs.
Yeah.
What is your secret?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you the secret, and this is really important. And this is the secret in every field. I don't care what we're talking about. We're talking about music here, but if somebody wants to be an author, they want to open a business, they want to do anything that's their dream, they've got to get clear of the negative, limiting excuses and beliefs in their head. That's the number one thing. And I'll confess to you, when I decided I was going to be a singer-songwriter, the first thing that happened were all of my self-doubts, all of my lack, limitation, excuses, beliefs that I can't do it. They all came to the surface, and they scared me. Because I thought, who am I, after all of this time going into being a senior citizen, going to say I'm going to record my own music, write my own music, and go in the studio and blah, blah, blah. Everything about I can't do that. I'm too old to do that. I have no talent for that. I have no background for that. I have no time for that. All of those beliefs came up. But here's what I did that almost nobody else does. I cleared every one of them. And what I teach people, and this is in every field, when you erase the limiting beliefs in your head, nothing stops you from producing. Once I got past that whole idea that I can't do it, and I got free within myself, 15 albums in 4.5 years. That's what happens when you get clear. In fact, there were 2 albums in the very first year. And in fact, let me tell you this. I'm on a roll now, so let me go.
That's good.
When I gathered the people that were going to help me, I got a vocal coach, I got a guitar teacher, I went into a studio, I get familiar with everything, and I said, I'll make my album in 1 year. I gave myself 12 months, and I said, I'll start in January, and in December, I will have a CD to give out as Christmas gifts. That's the plan. But a local magazine contacted me and said, we want to put you on the cover of the magazine. And I said, for what? And they said, for whatever you want, blank check. I thought, well, that's cool. And I thought about it, and I thought, maybe that can be my introduction to being a musician. I can go on the cover of the magazine as a singer-songwriter. So I went to them and I said, what month did you want to put me on the cover? And they said, in 3 months. So I went to my producer, I went to all the people that were helping me, and I said, you know that 12-year plan? Can we reduce it to 3 months? And they all gulped, and they thought, I don't know, that's really tight. But they know that when you're clear, which is what I teach everybody, when you're clear that it's not possible, and you realize that anything is actually possible, then you can go for it. We all decided that we were going to go for it. And I swear to God, 2.5 months into it, we were in the studio, we recorded everything, and I went on the cover of that magazine with my very first CD and announced to the world that I am a singer-songwriter, and Blue Healer was the very first CD. That's all from deadlines, commitments, intentions, and getting clear of the beliefs that say you can't do it. I don't know what is actually impossible. I don't think anything's impossible. It's all up here.
Absolutely. And you've already won awards for some of your records, some of your music.
To my own surprise, I don't even know how that happens, but yeah.
It just blows my mind. And, you know, I played sax in school. So when you know, we're friends on Facebook. So here you are one day, I think I want to play saxophone. and then the next, like in 2-3 weeks, you're like, yep, I got it down. I'm doing a CD. Yeah. How, you know what, sax is not an easy instrument.
That's right. That is
and I understand clearing, but I mean, I'm assuming you had a teacher and you were just really worked hard, maybe practiced 2 hours a day. What was how did you make that intention come to reality?
Yeah, I love your question. And the reality is I heard a baritone saxophone for the first time. And I said, what is that sound? I know what a saxophone is, but I never heard a baritone saxophone. And then I hired a baritone saxophone guy to come into the studio and add to one of my tracks. And I asked him all kind of questions about the baritone saxophone, and I was convinced I was getting one. And the way that I work, I went looking for a vintage one. I don't want a new one. I want one that's an investment. So I buy one, and it arrives, and I have no idea what to do with it. I don't know how to put a reed on. I don't know how to put the mouthpiece in. I don't know anything. So I left it in the case, and I hired a saxophone teacher for 1 hour. I went over to his place and I said, show me how to put this together and show me how to make my first sounds. He did. And I picked it up and he immediately said, you have a natural talent for it. Well, that was very encouraging. He might even have been lying to me, but he was stroking my positive side. And I thought, cool. And I went home and I looked up free YouTube videos on how to play the saxophone. That was my instruction. I watched the videos. I learned how to put everything together. I kept practicing, and I was so uncomfortable at first. The baritone, as you know, is a big instrument. I left it on a stand and pulled my chair up to it because it was hurting my back to actually pick it up. And then along the way, Mindy Bear, who you may or may not know, she's a jazz saxophonist who was nominated for a couple Grammys. Yep. She was doing a fundraising campaign for one of her CDs. And one of the pledges you can get was a sax lesson with her. I took one of those sax lessons and it transformed me. I was all set. I made a list of questions. I got on Skype with her. I went through every one of those questions and it skyrocketed my playing. She gave me the shortcuts. She told me how to do everything. And also the other thing you have to keep in mind, your book on breathing helped me. You know, you have the one book in particular.
Yeah, the breathing workout. Yeah.
On breathing. That helped me because as a saxophone player, I felt like I was going to get an asthma attack. You know, you have to bring so much air in, and with the baritone, there's so much to go through. So anyway, the one lesson, the free lessons, the Skype lesson, and my own intent, and then I decided, and this is all within like 6 months, you know, from hearing the baritone, buying a baritone, and going through all of this is about 6 months. I decided I was going to make a saxophone album. And I did. I have a saxophone album. It's right here. There's me with the baritone saxophone.
And it's really good. I mean, you're a really good player. And I mean, don't get mad, but it shocks me because I hated playing tenor. I prefer to play alto. I'm thinking you're playing baritone. That's such a brutal, to me, it was such a brutal instrument to have it. So I was like blown away. I'm like, because you do sound so natural. So that was amazing.
But I want to make sure we understand something here, because I want to make sure everybody listening really gets this. I'm not special in any way. There's no musical background. There's no given talent here.